Hi again everybody, it's Paul from Berwick Ford, and today's virtual delivery tour is going to be about the Ford Transit Custom. I thought I'd give you a bit of a tour around this one. I previously did a video on the Transit Custom Sport, which seemed proved really popular with everybody, but I thought on this one I'd actually show you around the inside of the van, how all the controls work, and so you can learn about the new features in your van. There's quite a bit to learn. Because the vans now come with what used to be the technology pack or driver assistance pack, so it comes with a whole host of safety features now as standard. So I thought I'd give you a tour around and show you how all those features work. So without further ado, let's get started. So this is the latest version of a Transit Custom van here in 2020. This particular one has got the dual doors, so you've got the second row of seats in the back as well. But obviously you can have it just as a normal van. But what I wanted to show you is just some of the improvements that Ford have made on the vehicle recently, because there's more standard equipment. Like I say, some of the stuff that used to be optional. So recently, or about a year or so ago, they made things like the rear camera, the front rear parking sensor standard, but they've now gone another step further and put a whole host of safety stuff on there as well. So you've got things like adaptive cruise control, you've got blind spot monitor, autonomous emergency braking, rear cross traffic alert, which is normally things that are reserved for cars, so it's quite unusual to see them on vans these days. But I wanted to give you a bit of a tour of this van, like I say, show you how the new features work, because the steering wheel and some of the buttons on this vehicle are different to some of the other cars in our range, because the Ranger and the Everest and that type of thing have a different steering wheel. So I thought I'd run through this with you and show you some of the features on the new van. So now we're on the inside of the van, I'm going to show you all the new features that are now standard on the Transit Custom. It mainly centres around the centre sort of console in front of the driver, the buttons on the steering wheel. There's actually a separate video to the Sync 3 system, which I'll put up in the top right hand corner for you now, so if you want to go and watch that separately you can do. So let's head over and look at all the new interior features on this Transit Custom. So this is the all new interior of the Transit Custom. If you've seen any of my other videos, or you've maybe sat in a Ranger, or you've got a Ranger, you'll see here that the buttons are similar but slightly different on the steering wheel. Then also the actual dash in front of the driver, the instrument cluster, is a little bit different as well. So coming around the dashboard, you've got the familiar Sync 3 entertainment system, buttons down there for the air conditioning, a couple of bits and pieces there for drive modes and that sort of thing, but I'll get on to those shortly. So looking at the buttons for the adaptive cruise control, they're very similar to a standard cruise control setup, just with the difference that you can adjust a gap that you want to keep between you and the car in front. So the top right hand button will actually turn the cruise control system on and off, and then this little rocker switch here you can push up or down just to set the speed. With the plus and minus you can obviously adjust the speed with any similar to any other cruise control system, cancel and resume there. Now the difference with adaptive cruise control is it basically uses a radar on the front of the car to maintain a gap between you and the car in front, so it will brake and accelerate for you to maintain that gap. The top left button is where you can choose what the gap is between you and the car in front. So obviously if you feel you want to be a bit closer you can do, or if you want to keep the gap a bit bigger then there's that option as well for you. So it's actually quite an easy system to use, and once you've got used to having adaptive cruise control, you quickly get used to it, and yeah, it's a nicer option than your standard cruise control on most cars. If we come over to the right hand side of the steering wheel, these are the buttons that operate the instrument cluster in front of the driver. So the way this works for you, if we look at what we've got here on the screen, so this is the chip computer at the moment. So just coming back to here then, is the up and down button here and the OK button is where you toggle between what you're actually looking at. So while we're on the trip computer at the moment, if we wanted to change screens we could push that button up or down. So if we pressed it down, it's basically changing the option that you're going to have on display in the instrument panel. If we go down again, we can just flick through the different settings about what we want to see. Okay, so back to the trip computer there. But what I'll do is I'll just run through each of the different options for you and show you what each one does and how you can adjust settings on the vehicle. So just quickly showing you here, so I was just using these buttons here to go up and down. Now each function that you go into, this button on the right hand side allows you to access further options. So whilst we're still on the trip computer that we were just looking at, if I press that button, it then opens up this little menu for me. So here I can change if I want to use trip computer 1 or 2, reset individual values from each of the trip computers, or configure the view as to how I want things laid out. So I can use again the up and down buttons to choose which option I want to adjust. So trip computer 1 gives you the same readouts as trip computer 2. This one you can obviously reset the values, and if you go down to configure view and then you press OK, on here you can actually choose what information is displayed on the trip computer. So if you don't want certain information, see where you've got the little ticks, that means it's going to be displayed. So if you didn't want, for example, instantaneous fuel consumption, at the moment it's ticked, so if I press the OK button and untick it, then that readout won't display on the trip computer for me. Simply to turn it back on, I just press the OK button and the tick appears again. So it's actually quite easy to use. And to get back to the previous screen, I can literally just press this back button, and then it will eventually take me back out to the main menu, as you can see there. Okay. Now whilst on this screen, if I press the down button, that takes me to what's called My View. So it's a particular screen where you can decide what's displayed there. So in this case, it's actually showing you a digital speedo. So again, if you wanted to change that, come to the button on there, press the right hand side, and then what it shows you is the options you can choose to have displayed in the My View screen. So as I said, we've got the digital speedo there at the moment, but you can choose any of these other options just by using the up and down buttons, and then you would press the OK button to choose that option. So pretty straightforward on that one's there. So we'd press the back button, and that would take us back to the My View screen, to the main screen. So if we press down again, that takes us into the driver assist settings. So this is where you can go in to adjust your preferences for the driver assist features. So again, press the menu button. You're probably getting the hang of this by now, aren't you? So this is now showing you all the different features of the driver assist systems. So that top one tells us that the blind spot information system is turned on. So that's the system where you get the little light in the driver and passenger door mirrors if a vehicle is in your blind spot. If we go down to pre-collision assist and then press the OK button, so that takes us into the screen where we can adjust the sensitivity and turn the braking on or off. With the sensitivity, if we press the OK button, that takes us into the options where we can choose how reactive we want the system to be. Normal is the default setting, which I tend to leave it on for my customers, but obviously there's the option if you want to change it yourself. So we'd press the back arrow again and press it again, and then that would get us back to that main menu. If we come down to traffic sign recognition, basically this is a system where a camera behind the rear view mirror will actually read the speed signs as you're driving along, which is a really handy feature because sometimes you're driving along and you don't know what the speed limit is on the road you're driving on. So if we press the OK button to go into that menu, so the top one actually allows you to turn the system on and off. I'm not quite sure why you'd turn it off because I think it's quite a useful feature. But the next button down actually allows us to adjust like a speed warning, so when you want the system to give you an alert. And actually what you can see here, where you've got that 40 just there below the screen, so that was the last speed limit I drove past on the way to where I am at the moment. So if I press the down button to activate the speed warning, and then press the OK button, that brings up another option for me. If I go down to that option and press OK again, what it's asking me to choose now is a tolerance of speed limit that I want the system to alert me at. So there's two options, as you can see. So if we go into the first one, up to 65 kilometers an hour, and press OK. So what I need to do here is actually set a tolerance that I want the system to alert me at. So anything up to 65 kilometers an hour, let's just choose 3 as an example, and then press OK. So any speed limit below 65 k's an hour, as soon as I hit 3 kilometers above that particular speed limit, the system will actually alert me. We can then also do the same above 65 kilometers an hour. So we press the OK button to go into there. Because it's a slightly higher speed, you may choose 4, you may choose something different, but I'm going to choose 4 for this particular one. We then go down to the bottom option, which is the overspeed chime, and we tick the OK button to turn it on. So that's basically where the system will alert you when you've gone that 3 or 4, as I've chosen, above the particular speed limit on the road that you're driving. So let's come back at that by pressing the back button. So that's the traffic sign recognition system turned on and set up. If we come down to the lane keeping system, this is one that a lot of you would be more familiar with. Press the OK button to go into that menu there. Now there's 3 options here for you to adjust. The first one is the mode. So it's basically how you want the system to work for you. The alert option is where it will literally vibrate the steering wheel should you change lanes without indicating. The second option down is aid. So instead of vibrating the steering wheel, that will actually put you back in the lane that you previously started from. If you choose alert and aid, then it will do both. It would make you change lanes, and it will also vibrate your steering wheel for you. So it's basically just down to a personal preference as to which one of those you'd like. So if we press the back button again, so intensity is another option we can choose from. So that's basically how reactive you want the system to be when you deviate out of your lane, basically how fierce you want it to vibrate the steering wheel or make you change lanes again. So we've left that on normal for now because that seems to be a good everyday setup. And then sensitivity as well, again that gives you the same options as before, but you've got normal or increased sensitivity. I tend to leave these things on normal just because if you put it on too high a setting, it's forever, buzzing at you, giving you a chime, making you change lanes or whatever, and you you find yourself very busy at the steering wheel. So I tend to leave these things just on the normal setting. So we keep coming out, we're back to that menu there. The next option down is the driver alert system. You can basically turn that on or off by pressing the OK button, and this is where you get an alert come up on the dashboard if the system feels that you've been driving for a long time. So it's basically just recommending you have a break, stop and have a bit of a walk, go for a coffee or something like that, stretch your legs and just refresh yourself a little bit. The rear cross traffic alert is the next one down. That's pretty self-explanatory. So if you're reversing out of a parking spot that you've basically driven in forwards, it will use the rear parking sensors to alert you of traffic that's coming from behind you from either way, up or down the road. And in particular in a van, that's actually quite a handy feature to have. The next one down is Eco Coach. So if we go into that and press OK, so you can basically have options where it gives you advice on how to drive a bit more economically. I don't know whether it's a case of turning the air conditioning down, not being so fierce with the accelerator, things like that, just to try and conserve a bit of fuel and drive a bit more gently. And then you've got coasting support as well, so when you take your foot off the accelerator, it will coast rather than use engine braking. So coming back out of there, we'll use the down button again, we go into the cruise control. And then you've got options there whether you want to use normal cruise control or adaptive cruise control. So the adaptive was the settings I was showing you earlier on the left hand side of the steering wheel, where you can adjust the gap between you and the car in front. And then normal cruise control is just cruise control that everybody's been used to for years and years. So you've got the option of which one you want to choose there. So coming back out there, that's the speed limiter that I showed you again near the buttons from the cruise control earlier. When you press that button to go in there, it's basically using an intelligent system that works within the adaptive cruise control as well. So that's all the driver assist settings. So I appreciate there's quite a lot there, but hopefully you find that sort of fairly useful, because obviously, you know, some of these systems are fairly new to a lot of people out there. So coming down, the next one is navigation. So basically what you'd get now if you choose this option is when you're using the built-in navigation from the car, when you actually put a destination in, it will show up in front of you if you've got to turn left, turn right, you know, take a second exit or roundabout or what have you. Actually, if we go into the menus for the navigation, so if you've previously saved a home address, then that will basically take you straight there just by pressing the OK button. Previous destinations that you've previously input into the sat-nav system, maybe some favourites that you've saved as well is the next option. And point of interest nearby, this is quite a useful one. So if you go into that, you can look at certain categories and it will show you features that are nearby you, be it a restaurant, be it a fuel station. So if we went down and just pressed diesel, there you go. It gives you choices of what you want to look at. Quite handy for some people that may have a company fuel card or something like that. So the next option is audio. So this would show what you're listening to, be it the radio or something on your phone. If we press the right hand button, there you go, then you can then choose the option AM, FM, digital radio. If your phone was connected via Bluetooth, then that would show up there as well. Next one down would be phone. I haven't actually connected my phone at the moment. You'd see things like your call lists in there, so calls you've made, received, missed, that type of thing. So if you press the down button again on the steering wheel and press OK, sorry, not press OK, press the right hand button, then here's where you can go into look at a few other bits and pieces as well. If we press OK for information, so that's turning the stop-start system of the vehicle on and off. So it's still currently running, so that's not available at the moment. So the driver alert, that was the system I was telling you about earlier, where it's suggesting that you stop for a coffee or something. And then the next one down is what they call Mikey. So that's the system where you can program one of the keys if you're going to give it to someone that you didn't want to sort of go over the speed limit or drive too fast or use their mobile phone in the car. You can actually program the key to restrict those functions for them. So if we come back out of that, so with the display, if we press that one there, we can basically change the language of or the text that you're reading, the measurement units for your fuel consumption, and also your temperature. Driver assistance, that basically is another shortcut into all the driver assistance settings that I was showing you a minute ago. So I won't go back over those again for you. But if we come down to vehicle settings, press that right hand button. So this is basically where you can go in to adjust some of the settings on the vehicle itself. So chimes is basically where, I don't know, if you leave the door open with the lights on or the engine running or something like that, then obviously the system sort of starts beeping at you. If we come down to lighting, so this vehicle's also got the automatic high beam, like we saw in the Ranger video that I did recently. So basically that will switch the high beam headlights on and off automatically for you. Quite handy if you're going down sort of a dark country lane with your high beams on. If a car comes the opposite way, then it will dip them automatically for you, and then put them on high beam again once that vehicle has passed. The next one down, the headlamp delay, basically just gives you options of how long you want the headlights to stay on once you've got out and locked the vehicle. Pretty standard stuff really. If we come into the to locks, so this is basically just an option of a couple of things you can do when you lock and unlock the doors. So with the feedback, if we go into that, what it's basically saying is, do you want the indicators to flash when you lock and unlock the door as like a visual sort of sign that you've done so. Loc Chirp, this is actually quite a handy one. So if you go to lock your vehicle and one of the doors isn't quite shut properly, by having this feature switched on, what it will actually do is sound the horn for you. So it's basically just giving you an alert to tell you that the door's not locked, and obviously then the van's not locked properly. Which, particularly if you're a tradie and you've got tools in the back, could save you a hefty insurance bill or no insurance claim at all, and having to replace all your tools. The next one down is Global Unlock. So that basically means that with one press of the unlock button, it will open all the doors rather than just the driver's door. So that's a preference that obviously everybody's slightly different on. I personally prefer to do all the doors at the same time. Coming down to the wipers, we basically go into that function there. At the top we've got the courtesy wipe. This one we've seen on other vehicles as well. So that basically means that when you wash and wipe your windscreen, it will give one additional wipe about 4 or 5 seconds later, and that will just clear any residue water off the windscreen for you. Obviously rain sensing wipers are fairly obvious, we all know what they do. And the reverse wiper there is when you put a vehicle in reverse gear with your wipers on, it will turn the back wiper on for you as well, which again is quite a handy feature to have. So that's all the vehicle ones, so we'll use the back button again to come to that menu there. Going down to the vehicle maintenance button. So all Transit Customs now have the AdBlue system on there, so there's a couple of options there. At the top you're seeing there when you need an oil change again, so that's quite handy to know. So in this particular case it's saying 40,000 kilometres. So with the AdBlue it's telling me I've got 9,000 kilometres of range left, which is quite good to know. Because if you've never used AdBlue in a vehicle before, it's basically an additive that goes into a little tank next to the fuel filler, and it's designed to reduce emissions of the vehicle, which these days is over sort of more something that people are sort of gearing towards to try and reduce emissions on the vehicles. So it's basically saying we've got 9,000 Ks left to empty. 8.5 now been set here. If we press the one to go into the level, we're absolutely fine because we're nowhere near needing to fill the tank up. If we go down to the information, there you go. So there's actually like a fuel gauge that you could get of similar to sort of filling up with diesel basically. So we've got a full tank of AdBlue, and a little bit like your fuel tank, the range in that tank will change depending on your driving style, what type of journeys you're doing as well. So if you're doing lots of short journeys, a bit like your diesel tank, that will empty a little bit quicker, but if you're doing lots of long journeys it won't empty quite so quick. So AdBlue you can actually buy at some servos. I think BP sell it on the servo, but most other servos will just sell it in a bottle that you can buy at the shop. Plus also your local Ford dealership will sell that for you as well. Coming back there to their main menu there, that was the Mikey system that I touched on a moment ago, where you can program the key to give to somebody else to use your vehicle. So that takes us back out to the main menu, and we're back to the trip computer. So I hope that kind of all made a little bit of sense. It takes probably a little while to get your head around, but it all centres around these buttons here that I was just using to operate that screen in front of me. The other buttons we've got here are the arrows left and right, so that will basically allow you to change preset radio stations on the radio. When your phone's connected, you can also answer and end or eject a phone call as well. And then we've got the voice control button there, which will obviously allow you to command the infotainment system. So coming over towards the centre of the dashboard, I want to show you a few buttons here. The one over there on the far left allows you to disengage the stop-start system. So it's a system that's started to get sort of quite popular on cars, where it basically cuts the engine when you stop at a set of traffic lights for a certain period of time. But if you're not a fan of that, you can literally just press the button and turn that system off. You've then obviously got all your air conditioning and ventilation controls there, and they're pretty self-explanatory. I won't go into those in too much detail because I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to use air conditioning. The nice thing you do get on all transits nowadays, heated seats for the passenger and also the driver, which in the winter is obviously particularly welcome. The one that we've got here in the middle is something you may not have come across before. It's actually a heated windscreen. So that basically works on the same effect as your heated rear windscreen. But what, I don't know if you can actually see it, you might not be able to see it. In the winter, you can probably pick it up actually. You can see these vertical lines which run down the windscreen. It's actually technology which came from planes, funnily enough, and Ford did have the patent on it for many years. So basically that just works, you know, if it's been cold outside, you get up in the morning, your windscreen's iced up, you press the button and literally in a couple of minutes it will defrost, all the ice will be melted and off you go. Which is obviously much nicer than sat there with a fan on trying to melt the ice, which is no fun for anybody. If we come across to the buttons we've got here just below this air vent, so the left button on there will turn off the traction control system. The middle button there will then allow you to change between a couple of driving modes. So if I press that button there, then we can see there on the dashboard we've got the 2 driving modes there. So each time you press it, so normally is your default mode for when you start the van up. You can then press it and go into economy mode, so if you want to be a little bit more fuel efficient, I guess. Then the other one next to that is just where you can turn off the parking sensors. So if you was in a situation where you just wanted to use your reverse camera, then you can press that button, it will just turn off the parking sensors for you. So pretty straightforward really. Something you will have to get used to on the Transit Custom is that the indicators are on the left stalk rather than the right stalk. Takes a bit of adjusting to, but once you've got there, it's quite easy. The button on the end of the stalk there allows you to turn off the lane keeping system, the one I was showing you earlier. So if you want to turn it on and off very quickly, it's literally just a press of the button on the end of the indicator stalk. You've also got your high beam headlamps on there as well. On the other side, traditionally you've got your wiper functions, and that includes your rear wiper and your wash wiper as well. And then just down here to the right hand side is your headlights. You've got automatic headlights there as well, always a handy function to have, and not always common in vans either. It's normally something you find just in cars. You've then got front and rear fog lights, handy if it's a little bit foggy outside. On the right hand side, the plus and the minus buttons allow you to adjust the brightness of the lights on the dashboard. This 0 to 4 here, if you push this centre section out and that little button pops out, what it's allowing you to do is actually adjust the headlamps. So if you've got a full load in the back of the van, what would happen is obviously the lights would point towards the sky. We're on 0 because we're empty at the moment, but you can turn it anti-clockwise, and the further you twist it round, the further it will adjust the headlights back down towards the road. Quite handy if you've got, I don't know, half a dozen bags of cement or something in the back of your van. Then you've just got the buttons there to adjust the mirrors, which also have the handy feature that if you pull the button down, it folds the mirrors in. Press it again, folds them back out. Quite handy. So that's a bit of a walk around the 2020 Transit Custom, plus a look at some of the tech inside the van. I hope you found it useful. There's obviously quite a bit to learn on this van nowadays. As vehicles get newer and better and have more features on them, it always takes a little while to get your head around all this new tech. So like I say, I hope the video has been useful for you. If you have got any questions on anything I've been through, or maybe something that I've missed that you'd like to know about, please leave any comments or questions in the comment section below for me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you've enjoyed the video, then please give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to find out when the next video goes live. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again in the next one.